Everyone, it's time for another Otome game, and this time we have Autumn's Journey. So, actually I gotta scoot up to the chair a little bit. Okay, so after the second reproduction, I was looking at a couple different games to play, and this one kind of stuck out to me because I really like the style, and it's supposedly like a really short Otome game, which is good. Because I'm not sure if I want to tackle a full-on Otome game where I have to get like every single path to get the full story, and that's kind of like scary for me because I'm not sure if I could do that. So anyway, this is the game I chose called Autumn's Journey. The art style looks really cute. That's one of the reasons why I picked it. I really like the guy with the brown hair. Yeah, his name's Kerr, which we'll find that out later. I've actually already played through some of this. But because I had to do a new software, there's like one hair and I can't get it. I had to get a new this runs on a different engine, so I had to like download that and play it, but I recorded it wrong, so none of the footage saved, so I have to do this again. So I'll warn you in advance, I do stumble. Stand up there, microphone. Brr. Okay, so what was I saying? Oh yeah, I do stumble over the words a lot, and I apologize for that in advance because this person is a really nice author, or the script is really nicely written. It just has really big words that I go, big word, fall over, trip over, fall, stumble. It's bad. Okay, so just a heads up. So, like I said, this shouldn't be a very long game. It says like a regular playthrough is like an hour, so for me it'll probably be like 2 hours. So probably about 4 or 5-ish episodes on this. I'm not exactly sure. But let us go and join the Autumn's Journey. This is a long intro, sorry. Chapter 1, The End of Summer. I gotta reread all this again, yay! Oh yeah, also, there is kind of voice acting on this. Like, the characters will make grunts and, like, simple words. But I turned it all off because I did not like the voices that they chose. One, the recording quality of one of them wasn't very good, in my personal, humble opinion. And, I'm gonna read all the lines, so I apologize in advance for the butchering of the male voices, because I cannot do a male's voice. Here we go. Sunlight filtered through the airy birch forest as the lush ferns grazed my boots. I momentarily shielded my eyes before I turned north, treading carefully. The muggy atmosphere that had hung over the past few months was now being replaced by the settled crispness of fall. Though the trees were still vibrantly green, apple-picking season was fast approaching for the town of Barry. I cheerfully stretched one arm towards the sky, inhaling deeply. Sorry. I made my thing. Stop it. Full screen. My bad, I had to move it up. Anyway. And thus my weekly scouting for monsters, bandits, or anything out of the ordinary that may harm local citizens is over. And that concludes my mission. I laughed, wondering why I was announcing my agenda to no one. I guess I just wanted to say that out loud. Walking around alone does prompt you into monologuing, just so you can hear a voice. I just wish I wasn't restricted to freelance work in Barry, though. How long is my training going to last? I'm more than ready for knighthood. I could do this. I adjusted my belt holding my sword, making sure the hilt could be pulled out at a moment's notice. Humming, I decided to meander back to the village, followed by the thin river down the gentle slope. I loved the terrain here. Not super rocky, but not entirely flat either. There was always an inclination. And higher up, I could get a breathtaking panorama of Barry and its endless orchards. Especially in autumn, when the leaves were so vibrantly red that the entire forest seemed to ignite, and the smell of crisp frost and thick fallen foliage lingered welcomely. It was then I spotted something entirely out of the ordinary near the riverbank, leaning against a birch tree. Thin birches were not exactly known to be comfortable resting spots, and I did not recognize the stranger's attire. Hello? Are you a traveler? His face came into view, and I realized he was sleeping, but that's not what caught me off guard. He had beautiful protrusions resembling shale shards jutting out of his long hair, white where someone's ears should be, or was it a decoration covering his ears? I suddenly wanted to touch them, but I resisted. If he woke up in an untimely manner, it would be awkward to explain. Okay. So, I said this in the last recording, but you guys didn't see it because it died. What she said right there reminds me so much of Inuyasha. It is, like, crazy. Like, Inuyasha was one of my very... Stop falling, you stupid. Okay, Inuyasha was one of my very one of my first animes that like really got me into it. And I just remember at the beginning where Kagome just like ears, and she goes touch, 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 and she like touches his ears, and I was like, oh, she needs to do that. She needs to go touch his ears. And maybe that's why I like this guy so much. He kind of makes me think of Inuyasha a bit, just a bit. So that's why I'm also really liking this guy. Okay, sorry to slow you down. Let's go back into it. At first, I was about to leave, but then I noticed something else rather odd. From a simple glance, I saw no bags, no possessions, or anything else on him. The place was too far away from civilization for a simple afternoon stroll. Was he mugged? And if he had been in Barry previously, I would have known. It was that small of a town. Curiosity won me over. Hello? A flicker of concern passed over my face. I grabbed his shoulder and gave it a gentle shake, finding his lack of response unnerving. I quickly hovered a hand in front of his nose. Sure enough, he was breathing, and I did not see any injuries that would suggest he was knocked unconscious. After some more feeble attempts to wake him, I decided to improvise a camp. I did not want to leave him unattended, and I knew I couldn't drag his body very far. Tossing down my bag, I went to work. Ugh. The fire crackled merrily on the birch wood as I opened my cloth, which contained a lump of rye bread and hard cheese. These were emergency rations, lest I was unable to return to Barry. Mother and father were probably worried. Just as I was about to bite into the cheese, I saw movement and glanced up, eyeing the stirring stranger. He, like, pops up like a buddy. Boop. I don't know, I'm having, issues talking. Setting my food down, I cautiously shuffled over. I had previously placed his body in a supine position and used my bag as a substitute pillow. Though it was probably more lumpy than anything else, it was better than nothing. Are you awake now? You've been out all afternoon. I was getting worried. I trailed off before I started rambling and watched him curiously as he opened his eyes. In a split second, he shot up and then clumsily fell back. I caught his arm to steady him. Whoa, take it easy. You just got up. He flinched from my skin contact, and I hastily let go, retreating slightly. I didn't get any sense of hostility, but he certainly seemed bewildered. Who are you? There was an uneasy edge in its voice, not quite one of panic, but more of anger. It was then that I noticed his eyes were of a brilliant amethyst hue, contrasting with his earthy hair tones. Better to remain calm. Aurelie, I found you in the woods outside of Barry. The surprise did not leave his eyes. They darted quickly to his hands, which then covered his face. Lastly, he ran his fingers through his brown hair. The horror on his face was so unsettling that I dumbly sat there for several seconds before mustering the courage to address him again. Are you all right? Obviously not, but I wanted a better grasp of the situation. He attempted to sit up again, but this time I was prepared. Again, he was repelled by my touch, and I gave up the desire to help him that way. He appeared unstable, but ceased his sudden movements at least. He actually did it. The hell? I know. My cursing's the best. He clutched at his temples, his fingers grazing over the odd fixations in place of his ears. He wobbled as he tried to stand, and I impatiently rushed to his side. Stop it. You obviously can't move in your condition, so you might as well sit down and clear your head. What is going on? Who are you, and what are you doing here? He looked at me as if he was registering me for the first time since asking who I was. Everything about him screamed overwhelmed, and he simply grit his teeth in frustration. Ask if he's hungry, because that's what I picked last time, so I have to do it again. I decided to find another angle to help him open up. I did not consider myself intimidating, but it was possible he had no desire to answer anything. Are you hungry? I softened my voice and returned to my spot by the fire. I grabbed the cloth and genially offered him the rye bread and cheese. He only arched an eyebrow in disgust. Picky boy. What is that? It's food, and you chew it. I ripped off a piece of the dark bread and demonstrated, humming delightedly, to show that it was edible. He scoffed and averted his eyes. I don't want it. It looks revolting. Sorry, my peasant food does not please my lord's tastes. Ugh, his attitude was rubbing off on me. Calm down. If anything, he's hiding that he's scared. He did just wake up in a foreign place. Are you nobility? Acorn, pine. That's an acorn. Oh my god, I can't believe I will call it a pine cone. Acorn. Acorn. He fell silent, and only the occasional cracker of the fire and the hoot of owls interrupted the stillness. I leaned back and ruminated over my meal, careful to leave some food untouched in case he changed his mind. Ah, there was that apple tart, too. I'll save it for later. I wrapped up the cloth, only vaguely aware that the stranger was examining my every movement. It nettled me slightly, but I decided not to comment. I did not want to do anything that would cause him to raise his guard even more. It was now dark, and I occasionally fed the fire, getting the feeling I was going to be spending the night. After what seemed like an eternity, he finally spoke up. Who are you again? Harley. I'm from the town of Barry. And you? Kerr. He reluctantly uttered the name, gazing into the fire. He seemed much calmer now. And how did you get here? His lip curled, almost smirkingly knowingly. You probably wouldn't believe it if I told you. You have unusual eyes and a strange fashion accessory over your ears. I think I could find your story credible. He flexed his hand, scrutinizing his fingers carefully. I didn't come here willingly. Out of all the places, I don't see why he decided to drop me in this low-born, simplistic acorn. Kerr? He glared at me as if offended that I had addressed him directly. So, where are you from? I'm not particularly tied to any region. It is not obvious already. I'm not one of you. If it's not, sorry. He tapped his knee petulantly. I am one of the dragons, an earth dragon. He stated it full of pride with no ounce of humility. Dubiously, I inspected him from head to toe, taking note of the stone-like juts for ears and his remarkable eyes. They are a beautiful shade of purple. Hue of purple, whatever. He balked under my scare, but quickly regained his dignity. Click. His eyebrows furrowed fiercely. So, why would an earth dragon be here? It's not because I wanted to. He blurted it out angrily, then touched his unique ears for comfort. I sighed and tilted my head from side to side as I adorned his explanation. Whatever, I think that was adored, not ignored. Whatever. All right, I'll admit I'm not exactly accepting this as feasible, but I'm not dismissing it either. You can't transform back? If I could, do you think I would remain in this pathetic body? So weak. I instinctively patted my sword hilt to counter that remark, but stopped when I saw him attempt to stand again. It was like watching a toddler take his or her first steps, but instead of cutely coaxing, I was fervently discouraging his efforts. We've already established that you're unfamiliar with your form. Besides, it's too dark to walk around aimlessly. I'll find a walking stick for you, and we can return to Barry, if you'd like. It'd feel wrong if I abandon you in this state. Sorry, I just stumbled over my words, too. Are you saying I can't handle myself? I'm pointing it out. Realizing we were both escalating our voices, I looked away in a huff, not wanting to have our encounter turn sour so rapidly. An altar. I need to find an altar. You heavenkind worship us, right? Well, yeah. I mean, the dragonkind were here first, so it's only natural we pay our respects. I admit, I thought dragons were more divine and irreproachable. Kerr was definitely giving me a different impression. Okay, I'm also going to just say that I absolutely love dragons. Favorite mythical creature. If you did not know, I'm like all about dragons. Continuing. I barely knew anything about the dragon kind, though. They focused on their own affairs. You will take me there. It was a plain statement, not a suggestion, nor a plea. Why an altar? They're all heavenkind made. How would it help you? He parried my question exasperatedly. It doesn't matter. Do you know where one is? Yes, there's one not far from here. There's a cave that leads to it. Relief washed over his face, and for once his scowl vanished. Good. We should go there this instant. He abstinently tried to stand up again, but I lunged forward and firmly sat him back down. Click. He gaped at me in disbelief, but my will was as stubborn as his. Morning. We will do this in the morning. Get some sleep and I'll find an ideal walking stick. I don't think you'll be Master Bipedalism without some assistance. I don't know what that word was. Especially not in a day. And it will be difficult if I have to physically support you the whole way there. Yeah. So just take it easy tonight. I'll even keep watch while you sleep. After my entreatment, he fell silent and gave a reluctant nod, closing his eyes wearily. I sighed gratefully, feeling moderately triumphant over the battle of pig-headedness. As Kerr was grumbling, I leaned over and pulled a blanket out of my bag. The temperature was still pleasant, but even at night, but it could cool rapidly, especially since it was the end of summer. After returning some items to my bag, I reshaped it so it was a passable pillow again and offered it to Kerr, who seemed puzzled by its purpose. Believe me, you'll need something comfortable or you'll have trouble sleeping. Worse, you'll wake up with a sore back and getting to the altar will be even more troublesome. You've already slept on it once. I think you can figure out how to support your head with it again. I laughed sheepishly at my own stab at lightening the mood, but I could tell it wasn't working with Kerr. Disgruntled, he lay down on his side and experimented with a few positions before resting his head in satisfaction. At first, he refused to use the blanket, but as the temperature dropped, he discreetly pulled it towards him when he thought I wouldn't notice. Probably to hide his expression. He rolled over so his back was to me and the campfire. I had the feeling the initial shock took a lot out of him, and I admittedly hadn't helped him when he ruffled my feathers, more than once. Now that he was sleeping, though, any irritation I felt dispersed along with the summer heat. I would need to be mentally and physically prepared for tomorrow. Stay cool and collected as autumn. I poked the fire and stayed on my watch until exhaustion beguiled me into resting my eyes for just a few minutes. Yep. I like how cute she's poking his face. Hey. Acorn. Oh, please. I've had less sleep than you, and I'm ready. Energized and ready to go. Pouting, I poked Kerr some more with the walking stick I had fashioned for him. It hadn't been easy to find a sturdy stick in a birch forest, but I had located a long one that would suffice. I had spent the morning carving off any bark and had even indented the top to make it easier to grip. Now it was my dragon prod. Arise! Arise, sacred dragon. I totally skipped a word. Cut that out. Kerr hastily shot up, throwing off my blanket in a feeble attempt to hide the fact that he'd used it. I decided to counter his usual scowl with the perkiest, most cheerful grin I could muster. Good morning. I don't know. My buoyancy was genuine. For some reason, it satisfied me to know that my vivaciousness irked him. I could use my sunny disposition to my advantage. It'd be better than snapping at him at any rate. Stop poking me with that. It's your walking stick. Here, you're welcome. I turned it sideways and offered it to him. He wearily gazed at it, as if I was presenting a cobra instead, but carefully grasped it. Cautiously, he pressed the stick against the ground as he stood up. I remained close, lest he topple over like yesterday. His fingers drummed against the carved handle, and he looked at me quizzically. You spent time on this? Well, I wanted to finish it off with a pretty flowing ribbon, but I had the feeling you wouldn't like it. Grumbling, Kerr took a step forward, leaning on the stick before hesitantly taking another. With each step, he regained some confidence, and soon he was walking in a straight line, albeit with an uneven gait. He could not exactly break into a run or even a brisk stride, but it was a huge improvement from last night. I estimated we could reach the cave leading to the altar by mid-afternoon. I quickly packed and followed him, since I had the feeling the only thing on his mind was that altar. It's this way. I poured in towards the gentle incline, and Kerr narrowed his eyes resentfully. Going downhill would probably be difficult for him. As we headed towards our destination, I kept my distance at first, but I gradually drew towards Kerr, one hand extended in anticipation of a stumble. Kerr balked and increased the distance between us, determined to progress on his own. However, his pace was excruciatingly slow, and he was unwilling to start any small talk. As the slope gradually steepened, his footing became more unsteady, and I worryingly grabbed his arm for support. What? He twirled around in surprise, and I actually did end up bracing him. Once he was stable again, I sighed. Look, I know you don't like me touching you, but if your priority is to get to that altar as soon as possible, I think you can swallow your dignity and accept my help. Besides, no one else is around to see. You've done enough. I don't need any more help from you. He shifted his weight and started using the stick to ward me away. I frowned disapprovingly. Hey, if you try hitting me with that thing, I'll confiscate it. Even I wouldn't do something like that. Gritting his teeth, he leaned heavily against one of the birch trees. When I get back, I'm going to give him a piece of my mind. Who? My master. His curt answer stalled the torrent of questions piling up in my head. It would be poor of me to interrogate him when he was still obviously overwhelmed by the situation. Right now, the goal was more important. Then let's get you to that cave. You believe me? Everything I've told you? Maybe you're just a very convincing actor, but I think even an actor would drop this charade after a while. Just as I was about to reach for him again, a low grumble pierced the forest. I glanced at Kerr in an amused bafflement. He averted his eyes, but I could tell he was embarrassed. You know, if you're hungry... I'm not. Another complaint from his stomach. I think you'd be able to walk faster if you had something to eat. What do dragons eat anyway? Meddling heavenkind. I rolled my eyes. Well, you have a heavenkind stomach now, and I doubt it'll agree with a diet like that. But it does make sense that you wouldn't want to try the bread or cheese. I doubt dragons thresh rye or run dairy farms. It was then that I remembered the apple tart. Even if Kerr found the pastry part detestable, the fruit would probably be familiar to him. I urged him to sit down. When he refused, I simply made myself comfortable on the ground first. Here, this is the closest thing I have to something found in nature. I could forage, but that would take even longer. What is that? It's a pastry. My dad owns a bakery. You probably wouldn't understand that. It's basically a treat with apple filling, and I think some apricot jam. Thankfully, my dad preferred showing off the natural ingredients. As a result, the top of the tart had thin slices of appetizing fruit covered with a lustrous yellow glaze. Kerr sniffed it warily. It must have been agreeable enough, since he soon accepted the pastry. You're welcome. As soon as he started nibbling on it, he must have realized how famished he really was, because he quickly devoured the entire tart. I watched as he coughed slightly and wiped the crumbs off his mouth, but his expression was unreadable. So, how was it? Anything tastes fine when you're starving. Or you just inhaled it so fast you didn't actually taste it. Well, it should tide you over until we reach the altar. Kerr grabbed his stick and we resumed our trip. The extra sugar boost seemed to lift both the pace and his mood, although we stayed taciturn. Anyway, guys, this seems like a great spot to end the episode. We found out a bit about Kerr, and he is a dragon, an earth dragon by that, which is awesome. And we need to get to that altar to figure out what the heck is going on. So, last minute thoughts. I actually did a lot better on this run than I did in the last one, because I guess I was a little more familiar with the words that I was going to be presented with, and I was able to not die and trip over them horribly like last time. But it is hard to keep up, like, the two voices. Like, it might not seem like much, but I do try to deepen my tone when I try to read Kerr's lines, so it does take a little toll, so I'm kind of like, my throat's like, stop talking. I'm dying. So anyway, guys, let me know what you think about this one so far. I think it's going to be really cute. I really do like the characters and the story, and the art is really good. I really enjoy the art. So yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying it as much as I am, and I hope to see you all at the next episode. So until then, bye everyone!